In a bustling town, Ryan, a dedicated bus driver with a simple dream, found joy in the everyday connections he made with his passengers. Among them was John, an elderly man whose warmth and kindness filled a void in Ryan's life, a bond that grew stronger with each shared moment. But one fateful day, Ryan's act of compassion led to a sudden suspension, leaving him uncertain and disheartened. Just when all seemed lost, a surprising twist awaited. A visit from 5 mysterious motorcyclists would change his life forever. What unfolded next was a journey from despair to an unexpected triumph, where a setback turned into a golden opportunity, proving that sometimes life's challenges lead us to greater blessings. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Before we dive into this story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Ryan, a man who lived his life with a quiet determination, was known by many as a dedicated bus driver, but to those who knew him well, he was much more than that. He was a man defined by his deep sense of duty, his unwavering commitment to his work, and an empathy that often went unnoticed in a world that seemed to value efficiency over kindness. His day-to-day existence was a testament to the power of routine, but it was also a story of unfulfilled dreams and the heavy weight of personal loss. Ryan's story took a dramatic turn on what should have been just another ordinary day. It all started with a seemingly small act of compassion, waiting a few extra minutes for an elderly passenger, John, to board his bus. John was a man who moved slowly, his age evident in every labored step, and Ryan, in his typical fashion, couldn't bring himself to close the doors and drive away. Those minutes of waiting, however, were enough to catch the attention of his supervisors. In a company where timeliness was prized above all else, this act of humanity was seen as a breach of duty. The result? Ryan was suspended, his future hanging in the balance over an act of kindness that, to him, felt like the only right thing to do. As Ryan sat in his modest home 2 days later, the weight of his suspension pressing heavily on him, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of injustice. He had always taken pride in his work, in the fact that he was a reliable presence in the lives of so many commuters. His bus was more than just a means of transportation, it was a place where people connected, where stories unfolded daily, some tragic, others joyful. Ryan had been a silent witness to it all, and now, that life was suddenly threatened. What would he do if he lost his job? The very thought filled him with dread. Just as Ryan was grappling with these anxieties, the sound of motorbikes cut through the silence of the evening. The roar was unmistakable, growing louder as it approached his home. He peered out of his window and saw 5 men on motorbikes coming to a stop outside his door. A chill ran down his spine. Who were these men, and what did they want with him? Fear mingled with confusion as he contemplated the possible reasons for their visit. Ryan had lived a life of simplicity, avoiding conflict wherever possible, and now, with his career on the line, he was faced with a new and terrifying uncertainty. Little did he know that this encounter would be the catalyst for a series of events that would change the trajectory of his life in ways he never could have imagined. Hello everyone, and welcome to Tales Unveiled. Today, I'm excited to share a story with you that is both heart-wrenching and ultimately uplifting. It's a tale that will take you on a journey through the highs and lows of human experience, so settle in and prepare to be moved by what you're about to hear. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 1 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. Ryan was a man who had always valued simplicity in his life. Employed by the state transportation company, he found a certain peace behind the wheel of his bus. It wasn't just a job to him, it was a calling. As a teenager, he had dreamed of one day owning his transportation agency, a vision that kept him going through the trials of life. Driving buses wasn't just a way to earn a living, it was an expression of his lifelong passion. But life, as it often does, had other plans. By the time he reached the age of 37, Ryan's dreams had been tempered by reality. He still lived with his aging parents, the echoes of 2 failed marriages haunting him, reminders of a life that hadn't gone quite the way he had envisioned. Each day, Ryan adhered to a strict routine, one that gave him a sense of stability in an otherwise unpredictable world. Before the sun had even risen, Ryan would be up, his body and mind prepared for the day ahead through a rigorous workout. It was a ritual that grounded him, a way to take control of the one thing in his life that seemed to remain constant: his own physical and mental well-being. By 7 a.m., he would be seated at the breakfast table, sharing a quiet meal with his parents. These moments of solitude and family connection were precious to him, offering a brief respite before he headed out to the world beyond. Ryan's work shifts varied, sometimes requiring him to rise before dawn, other times allowing him the luxury of starting his day in the afternoon. Regardless of the time, Ryan approached each shift with the same dedication. His bus route was more than just a series of stops, it was a journey through the lives of the people who boarded his bus. Some were regulars, familiar faces that had become part of his daily routine. Others were new, each carrying their own stories, their struggles, and joys. One of the things Ryan cherished most about his job was the opportunity to meet so many different people. His bus was a microcosm of the world, a place where diverse lives intersected, if only for a brief moment. Some passengers would engage him in conversation, sharing pieces of their lives as they rode together. These interactions, however fleeting, were meaningful to Ryan. They were a reminder that even amid his struggles, he was part of something larger, a network of human connections that gave his work purpose. Yet not all interactions were positive. Some passengers treated Ryan with indifference, or worse, disdain. They saw him not as a person but as a service provider, someone who existed solely to meet their needs. These moments were painful, a stark contrast to the kindness and respect he often showed to others. Ryan had come to understand that in his line of work, he was more than just a driver, he was a silent observer of humanity, tasked with navigating not just the physical roads of the city, but also the emotional landscape of the people who crossed his path. Despite the challenges, Ryan had always found a way to reconcile the difficulties of his job with his deep-seated love for it. But now, with his suspension hanging over him, everything he had worked for seemed to be slipping away. Little did he know, the choices he made in his day-to-day life choices that seemed insignificant at the time would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself, his work, and the world around him. In the days that followed his suspension, Ryan's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. He felt anger at the injustice of it all, sadness at the thought of losing the job he loved, and fear of an uncertain future. But underlying all these emotions was a sense of determination, a quiet resolve that he would find a way through this, no matter what. What Ryan didn't yet realize was that sometimes life has a way of taking us down paths we never expected, leading us to places we never imagined we'd go. For Ryan, this was just the beginning of such a journey that would test his resilience, his character, and ultimately, his capacity for hope in the face of adversity. Another reason Ryan cherished his daily bus routes was because of a special passenger named John. John, a man in his 70s, was a familiar face in town, known for his relentless work ethic and refusal to settle into a life of quiet retirement. Despite his age, John still worked at a local DIY store, a job that kept him active and gave him a sense of purpose. For Ryan, picking up John each day was more than just a routine stop, it was a highlight. Unlike some passengers who barely acknowledged Ryan's existence, treating him as if he were invisible or insignificant, John was different. He was a kind soul who never failed to show Ryan the respect and warmth he so often missed from others. Every day, John would board the bus with a smile, and more often than not, he would settle into the seat right behind Ryan. On those days, the two would engage in friendly banter, discussing everything from the weather to the latest developments in the economy or the outcomes of recent sporting events. It was in these moments that Ryan felt a sense of connection, a brief escape from the solitude that often accompanied his job. On days when John chose a different seat, he didn't let their friendship slip by unnoticed. He would still bring Ryan a steaming cup of coffee, exchange a few words about how their mornings had been, and then quietly take his seat. This simple act of kindness was a daily ritual that Ryan had come to treasure, a small but significant gesture that brightened his day and made him feel valued. Over the years, Ryan and John developed a close bond that went beyond the usual driver-passenger relationship. It was a friendship built on mutual respect and the comfort of familiar routines. Ryan always looked forward to seeing John, not just for the coffee or the conversation, but for the warmth and positivity that John brought into his life. Every time John greeted him with a cheerful "How are you today?" Ryan, it was as though a small ray of sunshine had broken through the clouds of his often challenging days. Those few words, spoken with genuine care, were a reminder that someone saw him, appreciated him, and cared about how he was doing. What John didn't know was that Ryan looked up to him in ways that went far beyond their daily chats. To Ryan, John was the embodiment of the father figure he had always longed for, but never truly had. Growing up, Ryan's relationship with his father was fraught with pain and fear. His father was a man with a volatile temper, prone to fits of verbal abuse and, at times, physical violence over the smallest provocations. Even more devastating was his father's chronic alcoholism, which often left Ryan and his mother to fend for themselves. There were periods when his father would disappear, sometimes for days or weeks, leaving behind a void that was filled with uncertainty and dread. Ryan's childhood and teenage years were marked by this toxic environment, where the love and support he craved were replaced by fear and resentment. By the time Ryan's father had finally sobered up and attempted to mend the fractured relationships within the family, it was too late. Ryan had already built an impenetrable wall around his heart, a defense mechanism that kept him safe from further emotional harm, but also shut out any chance of reconciliation. Despite his father's best efforts to bridge the gap, the years of abuse and neglect had taken their toll. The emotional distance between them was too vast to overcome, and any connection attempts were met with resistance. Ryan and his father struggled to communicate, their conversations stilted and filled with unspoken pain, leaving both men isolated in their ways. When Ryan met John, he found in him the father figure he had always dreamed of but never had. John's warmth, his fatherly demeanor, and the simple, genuine interest he showed in Ryan's well-being filled a void that had existed in Ryan's heart for as long as he could remember. The brief moments they shared each day were more than just friendly exchanges. They were a lifeline, a source of comfort and stability in a world that often felt cold and unforgiving. In John, Ryan saw the father he had always wanted, someone who was present, caring, and kind. And though John may never have known the depth of Ryan's admiration, it was this unspoken bond that helped Ryan navigate the complexities of his own life, providing him with a sense of belonging and a surrogate family in the form of a friendship that meant the world to him. Every Father's Day, Ryan would go out of his way to find the perfect gift for John, a gesture that always brought a bright smile to the older man's face. To John, these thoughtful presents were simply a mark of Ryan's respect for him as an elder, a token of appreciation for their friendship. He never suspected that these gifts held a much deeper meaning for Ryan, who saw John as the father he had always yearned for. John, a proud father of 5 sons himself, would often regale Ryan with stories about his boys, who were all now grown men, scattered across different parts of the country. "I hope I'll get to meet them one day," Ryan would say with genuine interest whenever John mentioned his sons. John would chuckle, his eyes twinkling with paternal pride. "It's a small world, Ryan. I'm sure you will. Who knows, maybe you've already met one of them without even realizing it." John would tease. "You might be right, John," Ryan would reply, and the two would share a hearty laugh, their bond deepening with each shared moment. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 2 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. For all the years that Ryan had been stopping at John's bus stop, John had never once missed his ride. Punctuality was something John prided himself on, and he made it a point to arrive at the bus stop 10 to 15 minutes before Ryan was due to pull up, regardless of the weather. The only exceptions were Ryan's off days, which John was well aware of, and the weekends when John didn't need to take the bus. It was a routine both men had grown accustomed to, one that brought a sense of stability and predictability to their lives. Ryan took comfort in knowing that, no matter what else happened during his day, John would always be there, waiting for him with that familiar warm smile and a cup of coffee. But one morning, as Ryan followed his usual routine, something felt different. He left home early, as always, picking up a few passengers along his regular route before heading straight to John's stop. As the bus approached, Ryan scanned the small crowd of waiting passengers, fully expecting to see John's familiar figure among them. But John wasn't there. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. This was unlike John. The older man was never late, not once in all the years they had known each other. A sense of unease began to settle in Ryan's chest, but he brushed it aside, telling himself that perhaps John had just been delayed. As the passengers filed onto the bus and took their seats, Ryan kept his eyes on the bus stop, hoping to catch a glimpse of John hurrying down the street. But there was no sign of him. The seconds ticked by, turning into minutes, and still, John didn't appear. The passengers, now settled in their seats, began to look at Ryan expectantly, waiting for him to start the bus and continue the route. But Ryan couldn't bring himself to drive off. Something in his gut told him to wait, that perhaps John was just around the corner, on his way, and any moment now he would come into view, waving apologetically as he jogged to catch the bus. But as the minutes dragged on and the other passengers began to murmur among themselves, Ryan's worry deepened. John had never missed the bus before, and his absence gnawed at Ryan. Where could he be? The thought that something might have happened to John began to creep into Ryan's mind, unwelcome and unsettling. He knew he couldn't wait much longer. His schedule was tight, and the other passengers were growing impatient. Yet the idea of leaving without John felt wrong, almost like a betrayal of their friendship, of the trust that had been built over years of shared rides and quiet conversations. Finally, with a heavy heart, Ryan realized he had no choice. He had to move on, had to continue his route, even though every instinct in him screamed to stay just a little longer. As he shifted the bus into gear and began to pull away from the curb, Ryan cast one last glance at the bus stop, hoping against hope that John would appear, waving and smiling, ready to board. But the stop remained empty, and Ryan's heart sank as he drove away, leaving behind not just a bus stop, but a gnawing sense of worry and a deepening void that he couldn't quite shake. That morning, the road ahead felt longer and lonelier than ever before. After 5 long minutes of waiting at the bus stop, with the growing chorus of complaints from restless passengers echoing in his ears, Ryan remained resolute. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, his heart pounding with a mixture of hope and anxiety. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, that John, his loyal passenger and friend, might be in trouble. The voices behind him grew louder, passengers demanding to know why they were still idling at the stop. Some muttered about being late for work, others grumbled about the driver's lack of professionalism. But Ryan tuned them out, his mind focused solely on the space where John should have been. Just as the complaints began to reach a fever pitch, precisely 10 minutes after they had first arrived at the stop, Ryan finally caught sight of John in the distance. The elderly man was walking briskly, his face flushed with the effort of hurrying. Relief washed over Ryan as he saw John approaching, and a wave of gratitude surged through him, gratitude that he had waited, that his instinct had been right. Oh, thank goodness, John said breathlessly as he climbed aboard. "I thought you had left already." "No, I didn't," Ryan replied, his voice filled with concern. "I waited to see if you would still show up. What happened? It's unlike you to be late." John, still catching his breath, offered a tired smile. "I wasn't feeling too well this morning and I called in sick, but my boss refused to accept it since I was off yesterday, so I had to come in." Ryan's brow furrowed with worry. "I'm sorry to hear that, John, but if you're not feeling well, it's not safe to push yourself. Anything could happen." "It's nothing serious," John assured him, though his voice betrayed a hint of discomfort. "Just some tightness in my chest. I'm sure it'll pass soon." Ryan's concern deepened, but before he could say more, John added, "I'm sorry I didn't bring you coffee today. I barely had time to get here." Ryan shook his head, dismissing the thought. "Oh, John, don't worry about that. I'm just glad you made it in time. Your health is more important than anything." With John safely on board, Ryan finally pulled away from the stop, the tension in the bus easing slightly now that they were moving again. But the sense of unease lingered in Ryan's mind, a nagging worry about his friend's health. The rest of the route passed in a blur, the usual routine feeling somehow heavier after the morning's events. After Ryan had dropped off all his passengers, including John, at their destinations, he was about to settle into his usual post-route tasks when his phone rang. The moment he saw his boss's name flash on the screen, his heart sank. He knew this wasn't a good sign. Bracing himself, Ryan answered the call, and sure enough, he was instructed to report to the office immediately. When Ryan arrived at the office, he found himself standing in front of his boss, Mr. Phillips, a stern man known for his no-nonsense approach to running the transportation company. The tension in the room was palpable as Mr. Phillips leaned back in his chair, fixing Ryan with a hard stare. "Is it true that you wasted the passengers' time this morning at the bus stop?" Mr. Phillips asked, his voice low and gravely, carrying the weight of authority. Ryan swallowed hard, his mind racing as he tried to find the right words. "I'm sorry, sir. It was just a few minutes." "A few minutes," Mr. Phillips echoed, his tone sharp with disapproval. "Some of those passengers were late to work because you delayed them by 10 minutes. 10 minutes, Ryan. That's unacceptable." Ryan's stomach churned with guilt. "I'm sorry, sir. I didn't mean for it to happen. It won't happen again, I promise." Mr. Phillips's eyes narrowed as he considered Ryan's words, but there was no softness in his gaze, no hint of leniency. "You're right. It won't happen again. You're being placed on a 2-week unpaid suspension. That should give you enough time to think about your actions and your commitment to this organization." The words hit Ryan like a physical blow, the shock of it knocking the wind out of him. "Please, sir, don't do that," Ryan pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. "I swear it won't happen again. I need this job." But Mr. Phillips remained unmoved. "Thank you, Ryan. You can leave now. I have other matters to attend to." With those final words, the conversation was over. Ryan stood there for a moment, stunned, before turning and walking out of the office, the weight of his suspension pressing down on him like a heavy stone. He had tried to do the right thing, to look out for a friend, and now he was paying the price. The drive home was a blur, his thoughts consumed with worry about what he would do for the next 2 weeks, how he would manage without his income, and, more painfully, the possibility that he might have jeopardized his career over a simple act of kindness. But as Ryan walked into his empty house, the silence almost deafening, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had done the right thing. Even though it had cost him dearly, he knew deep down that waiting for John was something he would do again without hesitation. Yet the future looked uncertain, and Ryan could only hope that somehow things would turn around before it was too late. That morning, Ryan returned home with a heavy heart. The weight of his suspension hung over him like a dark cloud, sapping the joy from his steps. His parents, noticing the early hour of his return, immediately sensed that something was wrong. They asked him what had happened, but Ryan, not wanting to worry them or delve into the painful details, simply shook his head and brushed off their concerns. The truth was too raw, too close to the surface, and he wasn't ready to share the humiliation of being suspended. The reality of his situation was grim: 2 weeks without work, 2 weeks without pay, and worst of all, 2 weeks without seeing John, whose presence had become a comforting constant in his life. As Ryan sat alone in his room, staring blankly at the walls, he couldn't help but feel the sting of injustice. He had only wanted to help a friend, to do what felt right, and now he was paying the price. He had no way of knowing that something extraordinary was about to unfold, something that would change the course of his life in ways he could never have predicted. 2 days passed, each one stretching into the next, with a monotonous rhythm that left Ryan feeling increasingly despondent. But then, on the morning of the second day, something unusual happened. As he sat by the window, lost in thought, the distant rumble of motorbikes suddenly cut through the quiet of the neighborhood. The sound grew louder, more distinct, as 5 motorbikes rolled down the street and came to a stop right outside his house. The unexpected sight jolted Ryan from his reverie, and he watched with growing apprehension as the riders dismounted and approached his front door. His mind raced. Who were these people, and what did they want with him? Ryan's confusion only deepened as one of the men stepped forward, extending a hand in greeting. "Hi, I'm Ethan, John's eldest son," the man said, his voice warm and friendly. Ryan blinked in surprise, trying to process what was happening. How did you find me?" he stammered, still trying to make sense of the situation. Ethan smiled, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Oh, it wasn't hard. It's a small town, after all. Our father, John, speaks very highly of you. He mentioned how you waited for him the other day, and when he realized you hadn't shown up for work these past 2 mornings, he grew concerned. So, we decided to track you down and see if everything was all right." Ryan felt a lump form in his throat, touched by John's concern. "Oh, about that. I got suspended from work for delaying the other passengers while I waited for your father," he admitted, a hint of bitterness in his voice. "But it's nothing. I don't regret it. Your father means a lot to me, like the father I never really had." Ethan's expression softened as he listened to Ryan's words. "We didn't know about your suspension," he said, his tone sincere. "But I want you to know how much it means to us, and our father, that you were willing to put your job on the line for him." Before Ryan could respond, Ethan continued, "Here's the thing, we've recently started a logistics company focused on motorbike transportation. Our father told us how you've always been interested in this line of work. We need a manager to run our operations, and after hearing so much about you, we'd love to offer you the job if you're interested." For a moment, Ryan was speechless. The weight of the past few days, the disappointment, the frustration, the uncertainty seemed to lift as he processed what Ethan was saying. This was an opportunity he had never expected, a chance to step into a role that aligned perfectly with his dreams. His heart swelled with a mix of gratitude and excitement as he realized that the very act of kindness that had led to his suspension was now opening a door to a new beginning. If you're still tuned into this video and find the story inspiring, drop a 3 in the comments to let me know you're still with me. "That sounds incredible," Ryan finally managed to say, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I'd be thrilled to join you and help out. Thank you for thinking of me." Ethan smiled broadly, extending his hand once more. "We're the ones who should be thanking you, Ryan. Welcome aboard." As they shook hands, Ryan felt a surge of hope and anticipation. The dark cloud that had loomed over him was now dissipating, replaced by the bright promise of a future filled with new possibilities. He realized that sometimes life has a way of turning our greatest challenges into our greatest opportunities, and that by staying true to what's right, we often find ourselves exactly where we're meant to be. Great. John will be thrilled to know you're all set, Ethan continued, a genuine smile spreading across his face. You know, even though he doesn't need to work anymore, that daily routine of getting on the bus and seeing you was something he truly looked forward to. Since you haven't been around, he decided to leave his old job. Honestly, they weren't treating him well. And he deserves better. He'll be doing some light janitorial work here with us, so we'll all get to spend more time together. With that, Ryan's life took a turn he never could have anticipated. He started his new job working with John's sons, stepping into a role that felt tailor-made for him. The pay at this new position was 3 times what he had earned driving the bus, a financial leap that provided him with a level of security he had long dreamed of but never thought he would achieve. But beyond the financial rewards, there was something even more valuable. John's sons and nephews treated Ryan like one of their own. In this new environment, Ryan experienced the warmth and camaraderie of a true family, something he had yearned for all his life, but had never fully found in his previous job. As Ryan settled into his role as the manager of the logistics company, his bond with John grew even stronger. They no longer just shared a brief chat on the bus now. They worked side by side, sharing stories, laughter, and even the occasional disagreement, just like family. What started as a simple friendship blossomed into something deeper. Ryan became like a son to John, filling a void that both men had carried for years. Together with his new brothers, Ryan threw himself into the work of growing the logistics business. His dedication and natural talent for management quickly became apparent, and under their collective effort, the company expanded rapidly. What began as a small operation soon transformed into a multi-million-dollar organization, a testament to their hard work and shared vision. Looking back, Ryan often marveled at how his life had changed. What initially felt like a devastating setback, his suspension from the bus company, had turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to him. It was a blessing in disguise, a clear example of how sometimes life's most challenging moments are simply setups for something far greater. Had he not been suspended, he might have continued driving the same route day after day, never knowing the incredible opportunities that awaited him. Ryan's story is a powerful reminder that setbacks are often just stepping stones in disguise, leading us to paths we might never have considered. It shows that with a little patience and an open heart, even the most difficult situations can transform into something truly extraordinary. And so what began as a suspension turned into a journey of growth, family, and fulfillment, proving that life has a way of surprising us when we least expect it. Thank you for joining us on this journey through Ryan's story, a tale of unexpected twists, deepening bonds, and life-changing opportunities. So what have you learned from Ryan's experience? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below and share one thing you've learned from this story that you'll bring into practice in your own life. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to bring you more inspiring stories like this one. Thanks for watching.